Hello and welcome to another election coverage here in Bendigo on Bendigo IPTV. We're joined this morning by Ian Tulloch, well-known university lecturer at La Trobe Uni. Ian, there's so much happening in the world. With what's happening in Europe, is that likely to have any impact here in Bendigo or even the federal election Australia-wide?
Dennis, I don't think so in Bendigo, but Malcolm Turnbull's using it to his advantage because of the economic and political instability in the UK, and he thinks that now is not the time, or he argues not the time to change your vote and stay with his trusted team. That's been his argument. But in a seat like Bendigo, I don't think it'll have any impact whatsoever.
A lot of people saying, though, Ian, that it's to do with people being disenchanted generally with politicians, with the major parties. I guess that's where I'm coming from. We see polling here in Australia that suggests that people are cheesed off as well with the major parties. In a seat like Bendigo, where are people likely to go? Where do their votes go if they are indeed cheesed off with the major parties? What would you expect there?
Well, some of them go to the minor parties, some of them don't vote, and some vote informal. So all of those three things can happen.
Well, would you care to make a prediction here in Bendigo? Where do you think we're likely to see more votes go in Bendigo if people indeed reflect what's happening nationally?
Look, I think Labor's favoured to win Bendigo, but I think Megan Purcell's done quite a good job in campaigning for a novice politician. I think she's done a reasonable job, but given I think the slight swing towards Labor nationally will be reflected in Bendigo, and I think Lisa Chesters will probably increase her margin.
What about the Andrews factor? We've seen all sorts of talk around the CFA issue, and people, openly theorising about whether Andrews could indeed cost Turnbull a shot at winning government. Do you share that view or not with the CFA issue?
Look, I think there are two different views. One is that most rural CFA volunteers are already Conservative voters, and the other is that the timing of...
Are they though, Ian? I would have thought they were tradie types. Like the people I know in the CFA out here are tradie types.
Well, not in small country towns, they're not. Those people are local community members, probably long-time Conservative voters. Certainly that's the case in the few areas that I know around Bendigo.
Are you surprised, Ian, that, given how political machinery works at any level these days, are you surprised at the timing of the Andrews deal with in terms of the union power takeover, the loss of the board and so on? Are you surprised that Chawton and co weren't able to convince Daniel Andrews to hold off until after the election? The timing would seem to me to be atrocious.
Well, the timing was bad from a Labor point of view, but I think Andrews' argument was that this came out of an industrial dispute, and the umpire made a decision, and he's implemented that. Despite the political backlash against Labor in some places, he just decided to go ahead with it. But I think federally, the Labor heavyweights in Canberra wouldn't be very happy with the timing of his decision.
Yeah, I think there's probably no doubt about that. We're going to a double dissolution election. People are already openly theorising about whether or not there might be either a hung parliament or potentially a Senate that refuses to pass legislation. How likely is it that we might see another election in the shorter term? And what are your predictions in terms of those outcomes with the Senate and with the House of Reps?
Well, I think Turnbull's probably favoured to win this with a fairly much reduced margin. Labor needs 19 seats. I think they could possibly win 12. So that would be a reasonably comfortable majority for Turnbull. The Senate, though, is going to be very difficult to predict. Nick Xenophon in South Australia might win 3 or 4 Senate seats there. Jackie Lambie might win. Glenn Lazarus might win. The Greens will probably keep most of their senators, maybe lose one in South Australia. So I don't see any chance, if Turnbull was returned in the House of Reps, of him gaining majority in the Senate, which makes a joint sitting of the houses over the double dissolution issues very problematic if it's very, very close.
What are your thoughts, Ian, in terms of the two leaders, Chawton and Turnbull? Let's assume one's going to lose, let's face it. Are they going to hang on to their jobs if they lose in each case?
Well, if Turnbull loses, there's no way he'll keep the job. He'll keep his job. Scott Morrison would take over.
You think that'd happen pretty much immediately?
Yes.
At the behest of, look, would Turnbull say, well, that's it, I'm out of here?
Yeah, he would. I'm pretty sure he would.
As opposed to being dumped by the party?
Yeah, with Shorten it's different. If he wins 10 to 12 seats, I think he'll hang on. If they don't win 10 seats, I think there will be potential challenges from Albanese, for example, who would be the favourite to take over if Turnbull performed more poorly than most people expect.
Yeah. You've touched on Bendigo here. You've mentioned Megan Purcell doing not a bad job. Lisa Chester's done a good job too. How close is it going to be here? Are we going to see Lisa's majority increased after what happened with Bickley last time, or will it in fact be reduced a little?
No, well, it's a 1.3% margin, so it's very close. But I would expect Lisa Chester's to increase her majority, say up to 5%. I think the demographic factors in a seat like Bendigo actually favour Labor and Green preferences flowing to Labor, and I think she will, at this stage, and there's still a few people who haven't decided how they're going to vote, but I'd say she'd increase her margin to about 5%.
You have a memory like an elephant, Ian, and I said to you before, I'd hate to have been one of your students and try and put one over you. What sort of precedent is there for another follow-up election if we find, in fact, that either Labor or Lib form government and can't get through the Senate?
I don't think there's any prospect of having an election in the short term. If there was a hung parliament in the House, both sides will be trying to negotiate with the crossbenchers, and one of them will end up governing in a minority government.
It sounds more likely Labor are more prepared to do a deal there potentially than the Libs, if you believe what Turnbull and co say.
But if, for example, if Nick Xenophon, if his team win, say, a couple of seats in South Australia, which is not beyond anybody's imagination, then he'd be more likely to arrange some sort of informal deal with Turnbull rather than Labor.
All right, as we finish up, Ian, in a couple of days' time, people are going to know the outcome. How long will it take to find out the outcome, do you think, with today's election technology? It's always pretty quick. And give me your final assessment. How many seats and who?
Well, I think we'll know the result by 8:30 on Saturday night. If it's very, very close, maybe 10 o'clock. And I think Turnbull will be returned with a majority of 7 to 10 seats. But there's still some people who haven't made up their mind. And this is why we've seen the campaign in the last week or so be very, very negative, trying to scare the undecided voters to go one way or the other.
All right, Ian Tulloch, thank you so much. You've been a stalwart for us through each, I don't know how many election campaigns now, but truly appreciate your time and prediction, and I might come back and haunt you next week when we have a bit of a look back and see how things panned out.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.